Okay, so we're joined by Indy and Mel again, who are going to tell us a little bit, I think, now about racing. Mel's very much a runner, and Indy's a runner who's now become a triathlete over the last few years. So it's two different perspectives here. Racing, it's the moment that defines us all. It's I hope, for many people, the reason why they put a lot of their training together, whether it's to achieve a lifetime goal of completing their first race or marathon, through to trying to run a new PB. So race morning, when you both get out of bed, what goes through your mind? What's it like getting out of bed and thinking, I'm racing today?
I don't know, I really love racing. It is really what I live for. I do train to race. So I wake up on race morning and I'm like, right, okay, here we go.
So you're excited, you look forward to it?
Oh yeah, I'm definitely excited.
You do get nervous.
I get nervous, but I think every race day for me is pretty much the same. So I know what I've got to do and what I've got to get done nutrition-wise, like setting up all my kit, all that kind of stuff. I write it out the day before, like I write out the times I've got to do stuff. And I just like tick things off. And then eventually the last thing on the list is go to the start line.
Wow, so you've actually got a process, you've written it all down, and you follow your timeline.
I do.
Up to race. You're so organised.
Yeah, but it's a bit daft that I write it down because all the timings are the same for every race. But I do literally write. I start at the bottom of the page, write my race time on, and then I go half an hour earlier, do this, an hour before, do this, etc., until literally the time that I wake up.
Mel, I'm looking at you here because you're smiling and thinking, oh my God. So what do you do, Mel? Because not everyone's the same. This will be interesting.
I wake up and I go, oh God, I've got a race. No, I don't know. No, I do. I do enjoy racing. It's hard work. I know it's going to be hard work, so I'm nervous for that. I'm also extremely competitive, so I'm more nervous about how I'm going to do and the competition around me. And
so just on that, so when you get up in the morning of a race, is there a bit of a battle in your head already between the fact that you know you love racing deep down and it's something that you want to do versus, oh no, I've got to do it? Is there a bit of a gremlin battle going on there between the yes and the no?
Yeah, I do get that, unfortunately. I hate that I do, but I think I've always had it. And
how do you get through that?
I have to just tell myself, I've got to do it. I can't let the team down. I've got to get out there and do it. And the more I race, the better I'll be. There's no better training than racing. So. Okay,
but what if the race is just for you? It's not for the team.
Then I think God, coach is going to be annoyed if I don't do this. I better get this done.
So you actually, just the fact that the coach is going to be mildly upset or whatever, that motivates you rather than yourself.
I would be annoyed at myself if I didn't. I know that it's best I do it, and I do want to race. I always just really want to do well.
So do you have a routine yourself? Indy has a routine there. She's written everything down, and it's kind of buttoned down to tight margins. How do you do yours?
I'm definitely not like that. She has a lot more experience than me with racing, so I think probably. Maybe.
Yeah, but I also have a lot of things that I have to make sure that's organised.
Yeah, but But I don't have to do all that because I'm not a triathlete. So, but with my running, I wake up and I do eat immediately. I do have a set times when I eat. Not really times. I just know when to get it in, and I'd like to get my kit out the night before and have it all ready, so I don't have any panic or rush. The morning of the race, especially with running. Sometimes you can be running at 9 a.m. or maybe if it's cross country, an afternoon race. So. I just like to be ready for anything. Okay,
so you've mentioned food, which is going to be my next question. So, race day arrives. Let's say you're putting in a race. For you, indeed, it's quite often late morning for some tries, and sometimes even afternoon nowadays.
Yeah.
For you, Mel, it could be an afternoon race, or it could be a morning road race. So what would you have for breakfast?
I like to have porridge mainly. It's the oats, I get on quite well with it. It's not going to muck my stomach up too much. It sits quite well.
What do you have with the porridge?
just porridge, chopped banana, a bit of honey perhaps, maybe peanut butter. It depends how I feel. So it is hard in the morning to try, especially when you're nervous, to try and, you know, get the food down because you don't really fancy it. You're just thinking about the race. But yeah, I do make myself have it, and I know that when I'm racing, I'm going to need the energy and the fuel. So just get it in, get on with it.
Okay, and is it milk with the porridge?
Yeah, I can't drink milk, can't have dairy,
Okay.
so I will have either almond milk or coconut milk as a substitute for that. But yeah, if you can have dairy, then obviously you'd have normal milk.
And what about hydration for you? Really, from the moment you get out of bed?
I have a pint of water immediately when I first wake up. I just like I've always done it. Don't know why. Again, maybe it's a bit of a routine for me on race morning, and then constantly sipping after that on water or electrolytes. I use some High Five products personally myself, and I get on really well with them. And I'll just be sipping that constantly until I get to the race. Not too much fluid. I don't want to have to, you know, be in and out of the toilet all the time. But yeah, just little and often.
So is it products such as High Five Energy Source, which has got the carbohydrate in, you might sip throughout the morning just to keep blood sugars high?
Yeah, and electrolytes.
So the zero as well.
Yeah, it's the zero stuff that I've always used.
Okay. Indy, what about you? You wake up on race morning. Obviously, you're used to training very early in the morning sometimes as well, so your body's probably a little bit different first thing in the morning.
Yeah, but I am pretty similar to Mel in that I'll have a big bowl of porridge, usually 4 hours before my race, whatever time my race is. 4 hours before my race, I have a big bowl of porridge. I use coconut milk on race morning because I don't want to have the risk of dairy upsetting my stomach. And I'll have a banana, peanut butter and honey with it. I'll also have a fruit smoothie as well.
Didn't know you had that.
And as soon as I get up, I'll have a bottle of water already made up with an electrolyte tab in it, which I'll sip on all morning until I get to the race. But also I have caffeine, which you don't have, do you?
No.
So I'm a big coffee drinker usually, but on a race morning I won't have any caffeine at all until 90 minutes before my race, and then I'll have a caffeine tab in a small volume of water, which I'll just
And why do you not have it
one.
for breakfast? Why would you not have caffeine? Why have you kind of starved yourself with caffeine?
Because I want to have that extra hit for when I'm stood on the start line ready to go. I want to have the caffeine ready to kick in then, rather than...
Interesting. And there's quite a bit of research to support that, to
Yeah.
suggest that if you don't have caffeine, even in the days leading up to the event,
Yeah.
and you take caffeine, of course, that can help if you get on with caffeine well. Now, let's forward wind here to perhaps a couple of hours before the race now. So you've had breakfast, you've probably travelled to the event, or you've made your way nearer to the start line. That final hour or two can be a pretty nervy experience. I mean, what goes through the head here now? You're not going to quite warm up. That the competitors are around you, people that you're going to compete against or run with or race. What's going through the head?
Yeah, there can be a lot of sitting around and watching your competitors, which can be a bit nerve-wracking. Everyone's sizing each other up, which can be quite funny, distracting. I tend to take myself off a little bit and just find a quiet corner and sit down because I don't want to get too wound up. But I'm pretty relaxed usually.
Are you a book person, a music person, or do you just like to have your own thoughts?
I'll probably just like play around on my phone. Like I've got a few games on my phone which I just use just to distract myself, and then I'll just wait for the time to go warm up.
Yourself, Mel?
No, I'm the opposite. I overcompensate and just talk to everyone.
Chatty gal.
I like to go up to the competitors who I perhaps haven't even seen for a year, and I don't know. I think it's probably the way I deal with my nerves. I just get nervous, and I'll just go up to everyone and be like, "Oh hi, we're all racing,"
And they're all like, "Bye."
They're like, "Okay," and I'm like, "Okay, how are you? Talk to me."
But are you really engaging with them and listening to what they're saying, or is this just your way of bouncing through the moment to get to the start line?
I think it's just distraction for me. I've always done that. I'm always talking to everyone on the start line just before the gun goes. I think it's just my way of distracting myself.
It's very interesting because no one process is right for everybody. It's really finding what works for you, and I'm assuming you've both found that over the years just through practicing what works for you.
Yeah.
It's been quiet at times and hasn't really helped.
Doesn't really work sometimes.
No.
Okay, so here we go. Final few minutes before the gun goes, and then when the gun goes itself. Now, for you, it's a bit different, Indy, because these days when the gun goes, you dive forwards into some water, whereas we don't
Only
want
in a triathlon, though.
Only in a triathlon, of course. We don't want Mel to do that. She's going to hopefully go for a run. But in that final few seconds before the gun goes, and then when the gun goes itself, what happens here? Is there a final thought process? Do you tune in, or are you already there?
I think I'm usually already there. Like, I kind of block everything out, bit of tunnel vision. Usually on the start line for the triathlons, you have your own little box, and so I'll just be stood in my own little box, waiting for them to say take your marks, go. And by that time, I'm pretty like zoned in, just looking at where I've got to swim.
And have you got a race plan roughly that you're going to try and execute?
My race plans are usually pretty simple, which is just swim hard. That's as far as I think.
So you just want to swim hard,
Swim
and
hard.
be in touch,
That's it.
and be where you can.
Swim as hard as you can, and then see where
Well,
you are.
we're going to come back to that in just a minute, which is interesting. So Mel, for you, that moment.
Yeah, as you're lined up in the start line, you're waiting for the gun. It isn't nice for any runner, really. I normally just tell myself, you've done as much as you can in training. Just get on with it. Just do your best. You can only do your best, kind of thing. I do try and talk myself up. I try and motivate myself as much as I can, because I'm very nervous.
So you'd struggle if you didn't.
I would struggle if I was just to make out in my head it wasn't really a big deal. I wouldn't do that well. I do need to really talk myself into it. Okay,
so during the race here, and this will be interesting because Mel, you're racing slightly shorter races most of the time. Indy, your triathlons are often sort of an hour, 2 hours long. So you've got to think nutrition on the move here. So what happens during a race? What goes through your head during a race? Think about people around you, maybe the way you break the actual race down, and maybe how things unfold.
Well, it's obviously heavily dependent whether I'm doing a triathlon or a run race. But in a triathlon, it's pretty much as I've got. As soon as the gun goes, I'm hell for leather sprinting as hard as I can, because the swim is so important in triathlon. If you miss a swim, then you can be out of it by 20 minutes into a 2-hour race, and then it's just a really hard slog to the finish. But then in a run race, I'm a little bit different in that I'll start a bit steadier and work my way through. Like, I don't really panic that much at the start.
No, you don't.
I hold a bit back and then think, right, as soon as I get to halfway, I'll push on.
Mel, yourself?
A little bit different. Not sure it works. I like to, normally in running races in the past, I've always actually gone quite hard at the beginning and done my best to maintain it. Not sprinting flat out, but I do like to get up there and then just try and hold it as much as I can and drop back a little bit if I need to in terms of being a bit steadier, and then once I know halfway, pick up again.
So just go back in your running career, because I know that you've run 9 marathons, and they were at the start of your running career, and they were for fun to a point, as much as running a marathon can be for fun. And so you've run the big city marathons, London, New York, and so on. What was going through your mind when you were doing those runs? Because you've got 26.2 miles to get done there.
At that point, I used to just think my family are at X, Y, and Z, just get to them. That used to be my biggest thing with marathons. I just couldn't wait. I just couldn't wait to see my supporters. Also, I suppose with speed, when I'm running a marathon, it was just about maintaining a pace that I knew I'd be comfortable at. 26.2 miles is such a long way, and every mile marker, it's so hard mentally to know when you see number 1, you've got 25 to go, and you just need to make sure that you're constantly comfortable, and then at halfway, if you feel good, perhaps a little push on.
Okay, and did you take drinks on, gels, anything like that during your marathons?
Yeah, I took on some gels. Electrolyte drinks have always been handed out on courses. But yeah, I prefer just to have water and gels, not too much to upset my stomach. It's what I did in training, so I always just kept training and racing the same.
So for you, Indy, clearly you come out of the water, you're on the bike. Now, being on the bike, you can refuel.
Yeah.
So what do you do there?
On the bike, I'll have a carbohydrate mix in my bottle. I'll also have a bottle of just water, and I'll have a couple of gels. I'll have a caffeine gel and then just a normal gel. It depends on the length of the race and how hard we're pushing on the bike, but I'll usually do a gel about an hour into the race and then another one just before I get onto the run.
Okay. So you're refueling and getting ready for
Yeah.
the final third of the race
Yeah.
all the time. So let's just talk just before we finish here. You're now the European Triathlon champion. Bit of a reality shock for you, and that was obviously a lovely moment for you this summer. By the time you did the race, in terms of the 10K bit, the run part, you were out on your own.
Yeah.
What was it like to have the whole field chasing you and to be running the whole 10K from the front?
It was pretty nerve-wracking because I'd worked so hard on the bike that I got onto the run and I thought, there's no way I'm going to be able to run 10K. But in triathlon, quite often we'll do loops, like shorter loops to make up the 10K. So on that day we had 3 loops of 3K. And a session that I do virtually every week is 3 by 10 minutes. And I thought, 3K is about 10 minutes, give or take. And so in my head, I was just doing that session. And so I just zoned everything out and ran 3 by 10 minutes. And the rest of the field were closing me down pretty quick. But my coach Nick was on the course. He was shouting at me every lap. I looked at him every lap and he's just like, 3 by 10 minutes. So that's all it was. I got to the end. I held everyone off.
You certainly did. Mel, for you, final thoughts in that sort of last sort of mile. I know you're Indy's training partner. You're not supposed to get emotional when she talks about racing like that. But that final mile for you in races, I can see it in your eyes. Calm down. What goes through your head when you were doing the final mile or two of the marathons? You had your family out on the course. I mean, that must be pretty emotional. We'll try and get through this moment, everybody. So, what's it like?
It was a really long time ago when I did the marathons, but those final 2 marathons, it wasn't bad actually. I actually felt like I was going my quickest in the final 2. But yeah, just to, come on, we're nearly there. You've come this far, just keep going. You can do it. There's no better feeling than crossing the finish line at a marathon. It's by far the best thing in the world.
Yeah.
Okay, final question for me is, because it doesn't always go right. Running and racing is not straightforward. What do you do if it starts to go wrong in a race? If it's just not going to be one of your days, what have you got any strategies there to get you around, get you home,
It's hard.
get through the tough days?
It is hard, but I think the most important thing is not to panic. And if it's going wrong in the first third of a race, you've got to just calm yourself down a little bit and think, right, okay, I've got this, I've done the training, so there's no reason why I shouldn't be able to do it. And just maybe take your foot off the gas a little bit, like compose yourself, and then think, right, I'm going to get on with it. And usually you find a way through it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, interesting. You wouldn't adjust the goals, or do you think a little bit differently?
Yeah, I mean, obviously when you go into a race you think this is the best case scenario, and best case scenario is when everything goes well, that's going to happen. But you've also got to be realistic that sometimes things go wrong, like maybe you got your nutrition a little bit off, or I don't know, there's not as many people around you as you thought there would be in a race. And so you've got to be realistic and think, right, if I do this, this and this, then I'll get to the finish and it'll be a good outcome.
You just got to concentrate on you.
Yeah.
Don't try and let anyone around you, take you away. It's hard for me. It's hard when I'm running. Competitors are around me, and I'm thinking, I should be maybe in front of her, or it's hard to get sucked. It's easy to get sucked into that. But you've got to, if you're having a bad day, you just got to think, right, let's just finish, do the best I can. Let's concentrate on you, and that's all you've got. Then that's fine.
Yeah.
It's been a fantastic insight into what goes into someone's mind on race day, and the terrors, but also the triumphs and the great fun that is racing. So thank you very much, and we hope that's been useful for everybody. Cheers, girls.